As Commissioner, I hear regularly from communities and from businesses around the impact that retail crime has, not only on the staff working in that sector, but also in the ability to be able to make money, i.e. a thriving economy. We asked our public as to what questions they would want to put, and we've had a significant number sent in, and they will feed the session that we will run today. How the session will work, it will be a more conversational style of areas to be identified, an opportunity for Alex and Richard to respond, and for the viewers at home to be able to see that process, but also to understand some of the key important information about the challenges that face West Mercia Police, the areas where still progress needs to be made, but also the successes that the police have had in tackling crime in our community. So the first part of today will be particularly around shoplifting, and that's where the majority of the questions that we had sent in focused on. Alex, I didn't know whether it was an opportunity just very briefly for you to set out what you see as your assessment of shoplifting across West Mercia in terms of the threat that it is and the crime picture across West Mercia.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, first let's talk about shoplifting, because people have different views on it. I personally think it's really serious. It affects businesses, it affects costs, and I have a view in relation to why shoplifting is going up. And I say it's going up because it has gone up in West Mercia. It's gone up very significantly in the last year. And when we compare it against total recorded crime, which is down nearly 10%, we've seen a significant increase, up to 44% increase across West Mercia in shoplifting. So this is a big area of concern for me as Chief Constable. I'll never rest on my laurels. We do have a higher detection rate than other forces though, at around 26%, so 26% of reported shoplifting we bring an offender to justice, and that varies, and I'd say in the last 6 months that's gone up much more, but 26% year to date, that's not enough. Shoplifting is a crime we can largely solve. There's good CCTV and there's more we need to do, and I'm currently with my deputy leading the organisation in trying to improve that, which of course has a preventative effect as well.
Understanding those that are causing shoplifting, and I recognise that all offenders are not identical, and lots of them have different reasons why they offend, or indeed styles in which they offend. But do you think West Mercia Police have a good understanding of who is causing the vast majority of shoplifting across our force area?
No, I think we could always do with a richer picture, and I see quite a lot of commentary on shoplifting, and some of our staff here and perhaps some of the people watching will have a view. I find it incredibly instructive to look at the people we arrest for shoplifting and see what their motivation is. And when I was leading a performance meeting for this year, last year in 2023, I asked people what would their view be on why people are motivated, and of course there's several reasons, cost of living crisis being one that is often offered. When we look at, for example, at that time we looked at, okay, let's look at the last 20 shoplifters we'd arrested, and between the 20 of them had over 600 previous criminal convictions. It's clear to me that whilst there may be individuals every now and then who shoplift because of cost of living crisis, the greatest problem here in West Mercia, and I think across the country as shoplifting has gone up, is people who do this as a lifestyle choice, often organised, and they use it to pay for drugs, to pay for other things, and they are prolific criminals, prolific shoplifters.
One of the questions we had in was from Steve around their understanding that the majority of retail crime is by organised crime groups. Is this the reality? And so we're hearing that there is a link that you just talked about, Alex, but how does the force get a good understanding as to what might be seen as a fairly low-level crime of some meat or some cheese being stolen in the local shop through to that wider link to organised criminality?
Yeah, well perhaps I don't want to create a misunderstanding. So there's organised criminality, for example, where you'd have some groups from all over the world and all over the UK, often sometimes Eastern European, who will travel around the country committing theft in a very organised way. We've seen that, for example, with some Eastern European groups currently operating against Argos stores that we've managed to arrest, and they're responsible for thefts across the place. I also think there's organised crime groups locally where people keep a watch out, and the drug markets are supplied that way. But I also think a particular problem in West Mercia is individuals, often drug addicts, drug users, who are not organised but are prolific and have multiple offences for many different crime types, and who will just go into Tesco's, Asda, Matalan, and just clear out, for example, all the steaks, all the meats, all the laundry detergent, which is an increasing trend, and then be able to, on the second-hand market or straight to drug dealers, be able to exchange those goods either for money or drugs.
So earlier you said that there's a good assessment around understanding the causes of shoplifting, i.e. that threat assessment, that intelligence, maybe landscape. How would you improve it, or what plans have you got in West Mercia Police to improve the understanding that threat shoplifting is, and indeed the profiles of those that are causing it?
Well, the first thing is for Richard and I to make it clear to our organisation and our leaders and our staff that shoplifting is important, and people who suffer from shoplifting should expect a good service from us, and we can no doubt move on to that, because sometimes we haven't offered that service and we should have done. So we then create a performance culture where we look at each local policing area and we say, how are you doing for reported shoplifting? We examine variations, why are some people doing particularly well, why aren't some people doing particularly well. But our number one method, if you like, is to put the oil where the squeak is. So where we have a prolific offender, we understand who they are and we run an operation or have a problem-solving plan on that particular offender. Now, to be as preventative as possible, we might want to create civil injunctions that prevent them going to particular shops. And those problem-solving plans can be on an offender or they could be on a premises. And in each of the local policing areas, there will be problem-solving meetings where they say, okay, what are we doing with this prolific offender, or what are we doing with this particular location that suffers an abnormally high level of shoplifting? And they're often managed in problem-solving plans. And for example, in South Worcester, only on Saturday, one of the most prolific offenders for shoplifting in Tesco's and Asda, one of those people who walks in with a bag into a shop and just clears all the steak out and walks out. He already had a CPN, a civil injunction against him. That didn't stop him, he was straight into the shops, but he had the CPN, and as a result of that, on Saturday he was remanded in custody for shoplifting, which for us is a great result, and it shows that we're putting the focus where it's needed most on the most prolific shoplifters.
Do you have a view on why people who've written in and spoken to us believe that it's increased over the last year particularly? Do you have a theory on and a view on why, particularly in the last few months, it has become such a more well-known and identified issue?
That's a good question, and it's obviously a national issue. It's not just West Mercia, and it is very post-COVID. I imagine stores also having to manage their profit margins very carefully. You think about deterrence in stores, and the cost of store detectives is important. You think about the market for getting rid of second-hand goods, and we know, for example, drug dealers are happy to take stolen goods, whereas perhaps before they were more likely to take money, and a ready second-hand market, if you like, or a stolen goods market, where people will, either in a pub or in a particular area, think that it's a victimless crime if that steak is really cheap or that detergent is really cheap. And so in the absence of a deterrent and the presence of a market, we need to work really hard on what we call being a capable guardian, but that means police officers and the stores working together to show that you can't commit this offence, and that's what we need